The morning sun had barely risen over the small auto shop when Jake wiped the grease off his hands and smiled at the old lady standing beside her broken-down bicycle. She looked tired, her hands trembling as she explained she couldn't afford a mechanic. Without a second thought, Jake fixed it for free. It took him less than an hour, but that simple act of kindness would cost him everything. Later that day, his boss stormed out of the office, furious. "We don't run a charity, Jake. You're fired." The words hit harder than he expected. Jake packed his tools quietly, refusing to argue. Deep down, he knew he'd done the right thing. The old lady had thanked him with tears in her eyes before riding off, her bike shining in the evening light. That night, Jake sat at home staring at the ceiling, wondering what he'd do next. He didn't know how he'd pay rent or what tomorrow would bring. But the next morning, everything changed. As he stepped outside to leave for a job interview, his heart froze. 7 black SUVs were parked across his driveway, engines humming softly. Men in suits stepped out one by one, their eyes locked on him. Jake's pulse raced. Had he done something wrong? Or was this about the old lady? He couldn't move. One of the men reached into his jacket and walked toward him. "Mr. Jake Carter," he said, "we need to talk." Jake's mind raced as the man in the suit handed him a sealed envelope. "You'll want to read this," he said calmly, then turned back toward the SUV. None of them explained who they were or why they'd come. The vehicles stayed parked as if waiting for his reaction. Jake hesitated before tearing the envelope open. Inside was a short handwritten note that made his hands shake. It simply said, "Thank you for helping me. You'll soon understand why it mattered." There was no signature, only a symbol stamped in gold ink that he didn't recognize. He looked up, but the men were gone. The SUVs had vanished as silently as they'd appeared. Jake stood there in disbelief, his driveway empty again. He tried calling his former boss to see if this was some cruel prank, but no one answered. Confusion turned to unease as he realized how strange the old lady's visit had been. Her bike was too old, too customized, almost like it had been hiding something. That night, Jake searched the symbol online, but nothing useful came up. Every website that mentioned it redirected to a blank page. The more he dug, the stranger it got. Around midnight, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. A text appeared. "Don't trust anyone from the shop. They're not who you think they are." Jake's stomach dropped. He looked out the window and saw headlights flash once in the distance, then go dark. Sleep didn't come that night. Jake sat by the window, watching the street for any sign of movement. Every sound made him tense. The text kept replaying in his head. "Don't trust anyone from the shop." He thought of his boss, his co-workers, and even the old lady. What could they possibly be hiding? The next morning, curiosity got the better of him. He decided to visit the old auto shop, just to see if anything felt off. When he arrived, the front gate was locked. Even though it was mid-morning, the windows were dark, and the usual noise of engines and tools was gone. He peered through a side window and froze. The entire office was cleared out. No files, no computers, not even a chair left behind. It was as if the place had never existed. He called the landlord who owned the property, but the man sounded confused. "That shop's been empty for months," he said. "No one's rented it since last winter." Jake's grip on the phone tightened. He had worked there every day for the past year. How could it be empty for months? On his way back, he noticed a black SUV parked at the corner again. The driver wore dark glasses and didn't move. Jake walked faster, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. When he reached home, his door was slightly open. Inside, the envelope from that morning was gone, but a new one lay in its place. This time, the note read, "You're already part of it now." Jake's hands trembled as he held the second note. The words, "You're already part of it now," echoed in his head. He felt trapped, like someone was watching every move he made. He searched his small apartment, hoping to find a clue, but everything looked untouched, except for one thing, the window. It was slightly open, even though he hadn't touched it since the night before. Whoever left the note had been inside. His phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, it was a voice message. He pressed play and froze when he heard the old lady's voice. "Jake, you need to listen carefully. They'll come again. The bike wasn't just a bike hit, carried something they want back. Whatever happens, don't let them find you." Her tone was urgent, almost frightened. Then the message ended with a faint sound like footsteps on gravel. Heart pounding, Jake rushed to his garage. The old lady's bicycle was still there, leaning against the wall where he'd fixed it. He crouched beside it, inspecting every bolt, and spoke until he noticed a thin metal plate under the seat. With a screwdriver, he pried it open and found a small flash drive wrapped in tape. He barely had time to process it when headlights suddenly flooded the garage. Black SUVs again, 3 this time rolling to a stop outside his house. The engine stayed on. A man stepped out and called his name, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. Carter, it's time we talk about what you've found." Jake clutched the flash drive tightly, his pulse quickening as the man's voice echoed through the garage. He could see more figures stepping out of the SUVs, each moving with quiet precision. His instincts screamed to run, but something about the calm tone of the man's voice made him hesitate. "You don't understand what you're holding," the man said. "It's not yours and it's not hers either." Jake took a step back, his mind racing. "Then whose is it?" he asked. The man didn't answer. Instead, he held up a small badge one Jake didn't recognize, but before he could get a closer look, another car screeched to a halt at the end of the street. A woman jumped out, shouting, "Jake, don't trust them." It was the old lady, except now she wasn't frail or trembling. She moved with confidence, her voice sharp and commanding. The men turned toward her instantly. "Get inside," she yelled, running toward him. The man in charge gave a quick signal, and the others reached for something under their jackets. Jake's mind blurred with confusion. Who was telling the truth? The old lady grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the back door. "That drive holds everything they've been hiding. You fixed the bike because fate wanted you to," she said breathlessly. As they rushed outside through the alley, Jake glanced back. The man with the badge was watching them go, speaking into an earpiece. "They have it," he said quietly. "Activate the next step." They ran until they reached an abandoned warehouse near the edge of town. Jake's heart pounded, his mind still spinning from everything that had happened. The old lady, now confident and alert, led him inside, closing the rusted door behind them. "You deserve the truth," she said, pulling off a small pendant from around her neck. "My name isn't Martha. I worked for a government unit that exposed corporate corruption. That flash drive contains proof of a cover-up involving millions in stolen public funds. The people chasing us aren't police. They're hired to erase anyone connected to it." Jake stared at the flash drive in his hand, realizing how deep he was. "And why me?" he asked quietly. "Because you helped without asking for anything," she replied. "That's the kind of person they never expect to get involved." Before he could respond, a loud crash echoed through the building. The SUVs had found them. "Go," she shouted, shoving the flash drive into his pocket. "There's a tunnel behind those crates. Run, and don't stop until you reach the highway." Jake hesitated, but her fierce look left no room for argument. As he slipped into the tunnel, he heard her confronting the men, her voice steady and fearless. When he emerged on the other side, the night was quiet. He looked back. No one was behind him. Then his phone buzzed again. A new message appeared from an unknown number. *, "Good job, Jake." She made it out to, "Now it's your turn to finish what she started." *, Jake stood under the flickering streetlight, the cool night air brushing against his face. The message on his phone felt both reassuring and heavy. He finally understood that a small act of kindness had pulled him into something far greater than himself. The flash drive in his pocket wasn't just evidence, it was a chance to expose the truth and give justice to those who had been silenced. The next morning, he drove to the city and handed the flash drive to a trusted journalist he once fixed a car for. Within days, the story made national headlines. Hidden corruption, embezzled funds, and powerful names all revealed. Jake watched the report on TV, his hands still stained with grease, a reminder of the ordinary life he once had. The old lady, or rather Agent Martha, disappeared again. But this time Jake knew she was safe. Soon after, he received a simple envelope in the mail. Inside was a photo of a clean bicycle leaning against a sunrise-lit wall, and a short note, * "Kindness still matters. Keep fixing what's broken." * Jake smiled, feeling a quiet pride he'd never known before. He reopened his own garage a few weeks later, not just for cars and bikes, but for anyone who needed a second chance. The SUVs never returned, but their memory reminded him that even one good deed could change the world in unexpected ways. Sometimes, fate finds heroes in the most ordinary hands.